vet necked, "Dear kiddo, take my hand into darkness." Mom communicating with her third ex-husband. "Let me tell you, kiddo, there are two types of chaos in life. There's the kind you can see coming, like dropping a watermelon from a rooftop and just knowing it's going to end in regret. And then there's the kind that sneaks up on you, wrapped in a floral bathrobe and holding a grudge. The latter is what I encountered that fateful day, fresh out of the shower, hair still damp, and spirit entirely unprepared for the drama that was about to unfold. It began innocuously enough. I'd just stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around me like a toga of questionable dignity, when I heard Mom's laughter echoing through the house. You know the laugh, the one that's 2 parts nostalgia and 1 part tequila. I followed the sound to the kitchen, where she was perched on a stool, swirling a glass of wine and chatting animatedly on her phone. This wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the name she dropped mid-sentence. "Oh, remember France? Those Dobermans were such a nightmare. But oh, how they loved you." France? Dobermans? I squinted at her like she'd just announced she was running for president. And then it clicked. She was on the phone with him. Ex-husband number 3. The one she swore she'd deleted from her life, like an embarrassing middle school diary. My suspicions were immediately piqued. Why was she reminiscing with the man who once tried to convince her to start a goat cheese farm in Vermont? Something wasn't adding up. But I didn't have time to dwell on it because moments later, the universe threw me an even weirder curveball. A text message from my ex-girlfriend. Let me set the record straight. This wasn't some romantic overture or dramatic plea for closure. It was just a casual, "Hey, can you believe I'm 36 today? LOL. A bizarre choice of punctuation, sure, but entirely harmless. I replied with a quick happy birthday and went back to the business of toweling off my hair and wondering why my mom was suddenly giggling like a teenager in love. And then it happened. The storm, the fury, the maternal hurricane I shall forever refer to as the Beaver Creek blowup. It started subtly, as these things do. Mom walked into the living room with the air of a detective who's just discovered the smoking gun. "Who were you texting?" she asked, her voice dripping with suspicion. "My ex. It's her birthday," I replied casually. Mistake number 1. Her face twisted into a Picasso painting of disbelief and betrayal. "Why are you texting her? Do you still love her?" she demanded, as though I'd just confessed to joining a cult. "No, Mom, I don't still love her," I said, trying to stay calm. "She just sent a text. I said happy birthday. That's it." "That's it?" she repeated, her voice rising like a kettle about to whistle. "You're telling me she just randomly texted you out of nowhere? Do you think I'm stupid?" This is the thing about arguing with Mom, kiddo. Logic doesn't stand a chance. Once she's decided you're guilty of some imagined crime, you may as well lawyer up. I tried to explain that it wasn't a big deal, that my ex and I were on good terms and hadn't spoken in years. But by then, she was in full courtroom mode, prosecuting me for crimes of emotional treason. We were supposed to leave for Beaver Creek that afternoon, a trip I'd sacrificed work, sanity, and the last shred of my dignity to join. But now, Mom was throwing around ultimatums like a game of emotional dodgeball. "Maybe you shouldn't come," she said, crossing her arms dramatically. "Maybe you should just fly home and spend time with your ex instead." I stared at her, aghast. "What are you even talking about? She lives in another state. We haven't spoken in years. I'm here for you, not her." But she wasn't having it. Suddenly, the trip to Beaver Creek, which had been her dream getaway for months, was tainted by the mere existence of my ex-girlfriend. "I don't need this kind of energy on my trip," she declared, as though I'd brought a cursed artifact into the house. By the time we got into the car, the tension was so thick you could have spread it on toast. She spent the first hour of the drive in icy silence, punctuated only by passive-aggressive comments about people who can't let go of the past. Meanwhile, I was sitting there, wondering if I should have just stayed at work and avoided the entire debacle. Eventually, the silence broke when Mom turned to me and said, "You know, your father never would have put up with this." And there it was, the nuclear option. The mention of my dad, the man who still calls her every year on Christmas to remind her she owes him for a ski trip they took in 1987. Kiddo, here's the lesson I learned that day. Sometimes the drama isn't about you. Sometimes it's about France, Dobermans, and an ex-husband who made bad cheese. It's about memories that resurface at inconvenient times and the complicated ways we try to make sense of our lives. But mostly, it's about how moms are masters of turning molehills into mountains and making you question every decision you've ever made. In the end, we made it to Beaver Creek. We even had a great time once she decided to forgive me for the heinous crime of wishing someone a happy birthday. But I'll never forget that drive, the tension, the accusations, the lingering scent of unresolved trauma. And so, kiddo, take my hand into darkness. Because if you ever find yourself in the middle of a family meltdown, just remember, it's not about the text. It's never about the text. It's about France.